Here's our challenge: gun control. It is a hot topic and not everybody sees it the same way. We're going to find out what a high school student thinks about gun control today on Conversations. Let's go to the studio. Well, I'm kind of cheery, even though the subject matter is kind of intense. We're going to talk about gun control, and with me today is Justin. Justin, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
Well, what made me think about this topic is this.
We're going to go ahead and shoot that. We're going to start that all over again.
From the over there?
Yeah, we're going to start that whole thing over again.
What happened?
And by the way, you were spot on. If you could be that brilliant this next time, it would be awesome. You were really good.
Here's our challenge: gun control. It is a hot topic, a lot of controversy, and that is what we're going to talk about today on Conversations. Let's go to the studio. Well, gun control. It's a big enough deal that in this issue of the school newspaper, the cover article is about gun control. And I like what the author, Amy Wang, was talking about. There's a lot of, well, the obvious things is everything that's been in the news, all of the bloodshed that's happened at different places around the country. And then after every single incident, gun control, again, comes into the media. And I was curious about a high school student's kind of view of this whole issue, because there's a lot of talk going on, and today's high school student is Justin. Justin, how are you?
Mildly adequate.
Mildly adequate. Could we ask for more? Well, let's just leave it where it is.
All right.
So, gun control. It's a really emotional thing because people die, right? Now, there is a thing called the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, and that can be contested a lot of different ways. So I'm curious, let's start with just when you hear the word gun control, the phrase gun control, what do you feel?
Well, what I feel from just the words,
Yeah.
I think of like them just banning guns completely. I don't think that they should, but that's what comes to mind.
Really? So it's gun control, not, I mean, the phrase doesn't say gun elimination. So but that is the first thing that you feel. It's like, get rid of all the guns. And you don't think that's a good idea?
Not at all.
Because?
Mostly it's just because, okay, prohibition, remember last time,
alcohol.
Last time the government banned a big thing that Americans love, crime went up insanely. Now imagine a shooter knowing that they're going to go into a situation, they're going to have a gun illegally because they can still get it, and they're going to have no risk. They have no other people with a gun to even think about.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if we outlaw all guns, then only outlaws will have guns, basically. And there's no control on who gets a gun, because it's just no law-abiding citizen is supposed to have a gun. And so anybody can get a gun if they really want to in the black market. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's a really good point. So what do you think should happen?
I think that there should be a lot more research done into the person who is getting a gun. If you look at this graph right here on the
All right, let's
computer,
go to the HDMI and take a look. Okay, killer obtained weapons legally, question mark.
a lot of the killers are getting their weapons legally, even though they're obviously not suited for getting a weapon. So it's pretty easy to get a gun right now. I can walk in. If I have a good record, I'm gonna have a gun in my hands pretty soon, right?
But, well, I don't know, you're a minor.
Well, hypothetically.
For an adult?
Yes.
For an adult. Do you know what the age is for obtaining a gun legally? Is it 18?
I'm not sure.
We'll have to look into that. Yeah, okay. All right, keep going. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
It's all right. But I think that we should just really look into what we can do about researching more about the person who's getting a gun.
All right, so now we're not talking about guns anymore, we're talking about people.
Yes.
That's an interesting point. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the whole idea of it's people that kill, not guns, if that even is a reality, right after these words. Welcome back to Conversations. Where we left off, Justin was talking about people and the ones who buy guns, and should we regulate who's allowed to get a gun? Am I in the right direction on that?
Yes.
Okay, fill that out.
I think that a lot of I know that a lot of gun owners, who shoot people, the killers, I mean.
Right.
I can't think.
Sure.
They are obviously mentally not okay. The guy who was the Vegas shooter, they had no idea that he was somehow a psychopath. Like, all these guys.
Who's they? Who is they had no idea?
Well, the people who gave him the guns.
Okay.
They didn't have they didn't have the way to research him as much as they could.
Now, as a point on that, I think a lot of his guns were purchased online, if I understand correctly. Well, okay, so he had over 40 guns. Let's say 30 of them, no, let's say 10 of them were purchased online. Still, your point is well taken. How in the world do you do a background check on somebody that's buying something online? But you're saying that a background check is necessary.
Well, yeah, you can go from their license. So like you'd have their information from the license and then be giving it to you online.
But that would only give you what their record is, what their prior, if there were any prior incidents. Okay.
And the license, I think, should require more.
Really? When you get your driver's license, there should be a thorough background check on just driving a car?
Not driver's license, I mean like gun license.
Oh, the gun permit.
Yes, permit.
Okay. And it should require more, like what?
I'm not exactly sure on
No,
what
no,
it should
no.
require.
I mean, let's say that's a fantasy world and you get to make all the rules. What would you require for a permit?
I don't really know.
Well, think about it. Think about what you, okay, take this approach on it.
Okay.
Who are the people that you don't want to have guns?
Obviously, like psychopathic people or sociopaths. Or, that gives me on a good point. I know that a lot of, if we're going with sociopath, it's built, sociopaths are built by society, not by birth, and psychopaths are usually born a psychopath.
Okay, wait a minute. Because what you just said was pretty deep. A sociopath, and I think if we define a sociopath, they don't have the emotions towards what happens to other people. There's no empathy, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so a psychopath is just wired differently, and they are aggressively violent. Is that correct?
No.
How would you determine a psychopath versus a sociopath?
Well, what I said is how I determine it, because I took psychology last year, and that's what I was taught.
Yeah, so say it again.
It's when a psychopath is born, a sociopath is made.
Really?
So
that's a whole nature-nurture thing. So you're saying, based on the information that you've been given so far, that a sociopath is created by their environment to the point where they want to, in this case, kill people. Okay. So if that's the case, then how do you, what filters would you put in place? And you know what? Stew on that for a second, because we're going to take another little break. And when we come back, we're going to try to figure out what filters would you put in place to determine who can and is legally able to purchase a gun. Right after these words. We're talking about gun control. Justin is our guest, and where we left off is if you want to have gun control and try to kind of limit the people that are allowed to purchase guns, then what's the criteria? What filters do you put in place? Justin?
I think that we should go on an in-depth check of their child life, not just their personal record, but how they were as a kid. Because as a kid, and if you're a psychopath or a sociopath, you would act differently than a normal kid, and you could have a teacher note that, or like you can have like see the behavioral differences.
Violent behavior, aggressive behavior, other kind of taglines like that, all the way back through grade school?
Yeah.
Really? Well, that means that we would have to ask teachers and any authority figure overseeing children to be a little bit more analytical, and then we're subjective. Those assessments would be subjective by the person that is filling those things out, but still, we need that information? Okay. How do you know if it's credible? How do you know if the assessment is credible? That you can trust that? Because it's possible for a kid to be mislabeled.
So you're asking like by the teacher?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that means the teachers would have to be trained as well. Now we're talking about a whole social program. But I guess if the ultimate reward is somebody doesn't get shot, then it's definitely worth it. Anyway, so what else would you put in place?
That's really all I had thought.
No, that's good. Okay, so what we're trying to figure out is that if it's in a person's personality to use a gun to kill another human being, right? And so I'm going to recap what you've said so far. You put filters in place to assess the person that wants to buy a gun, and then you use the permit for gun ownership would attach as a background check all of these things that are in file connected to the person that wants to buy. And that would rely on an assessment that's been going on throughout the years of their life to see if there is any sort of abnormally aggressive behavior where they could take a gun and do some real harm. Am I summing that up correctly?
Yes.
Okay, what about the type of gun? We've only got 30 seconds left. What about the type of gun that would be allowed to be sold? Some people say assault weapons, things that are normally used by a soldier in war, shouldn't even be accessible to their average citizen, that only like hunting guns would be. What do you think about that?
I don't think that having a military weapon is fine, but on the contrary, they're attacking the wrong problem. Most gun shootings are caused, if we look by the camera, not the camera, the computer.
Let's go back to the laptop. Mass shooters weapons, 1982 to 2012.
Most shootings are done by handgun, not by assault weapon.
I should have silenced this. Okay, my apologies. Go ahead.
Most shootings are done by handgun, not by assault weapon. They're making these assault weapons seem like this giant epidemic to mankind.
Well, the Las Vegas shooting was assault weapon.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. But that's one instance when most other ones are done by handgun. So what do we attack? The one time that one person is able to kill people, or all of the other times someone's able to kill people?
Oh my gosh, that's a great point. Well, obviously this conversation is going to continue in the next episode of Conversations. So I think it's really important that you give us your feedback. Go to the website, send us emails, go to our Twitter account that has been set up for Conversations, and please give us your feedback and your input, because we want all of that to enter into the conversation. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.
Leave you two guys to just talk about it for a couple minutes while we get things figured out.
Okay.
So that's interesting that okay, wait. You know what? That means that if it's a single gun, we're not talking, now we're talking about like man-on-man type of a deal. But I think the thing that most people are really up in arms about, pardon the pun, is mass shootings, right?
Yes.
Which is a different type of weapon. So I think we would probably need to like single that out or narrow that down. Does that make sense? Because your stats have shown you that most of it is done with a handgun?
Oh yes, rifles, revolvers, and shotguns, not assault weapons.
So not anything that would have repeat fire type of a deal?
Yes, it's all single fire.
And with a rifle or whatever, or with a handgun, that's fascinating. So like the shootings that were done in closed, like the Las Vegas shooting, he was kind of spraying a crowd. So if somebody goes into a confined environment like a church or a school or whatever, most of that is done with a handgun?
Yeah, because you won't, where are you going to hide a giant AK-47 in your jacket? You don't have room for that. You have a room for
Oh, and
handgun
to
though.
walk into the environment.
Yeah, like they'll see you with a giant AK-47 in your jacket. They won't see you with a handgun.
You know what's interesting though is that if you're seen, then what happens? Okay, now we've gone away from gun control and we've gone into security. So let's leave that aside for a second.
Okay.
All right. So anybody can buy a handgun, pretty much. Any adult can buy a handgun.
With a license, yeah.
Right. With a permit? What kind of license? A license to purchase a gun?
Yeah, I keep thinking it's a license.
Okay. I don't know. I've never tried to buy a gun. I know. Do you know anybody that owns a gun?
I do.
Do you know what they went through to get that gun?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Oh, are you curious now? Yeah, me too.
I have an opinion on this, but I don't know as much on this as I do other situations.
Oh, that's interesting. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. What kind of scenario would change your mind
About
your opinion? What would make you open to perhaps altering your opinion, perhaps even changing it?
if the focus in shootings went to assault weapons, if a lot more assault weapons were being used in shootings rather than handguns, I would totally move into the other direction and try to ban the assault weapons. But it's not the assault weapons, it's the handguns and the rifles. I also feel that, I don't think a lot of things will change my mind here.
Yeah.
I can tell you that, because a lot of shootings are also saved by people with other guns.
Oh, really?
Like, if you have someone else in a crowd with a gun, they could shoot the shooter. But if you have no one with a gun, as I said before, the shooter has no risk.
All right, so there are some states in America where it's common for people to just be able to have a gun on their person. Then there are other states where that's kind of like scary.
Are you talking
very
about like
scary.
concealed weapons?
I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a difference between having it hidden and having it out in the open? Yeah. So if you're carrying a gun, everybody should be able to see it?
Well, I'm just saying, I was asking if it was concealed weapon you were talking about.
Yeah. Well, what's your opinion on that?
Having a concealed weapon?
Yeah. Would you feel safer if you knew the gun was there, or would you rather not know?
I'd feel safer if I knew that a gun was there, because I'd know that, if I knew that a gun was there, I'd probably know who had it. And if I didn't know a gun was there, I could look at an entire crowd and say, who has a gun out of all these people? Is it the girl with a random dress, or is it a guy who's in Metal Gear?
Are you now, when you get into a crowd situation like at a concert or whatever, are you afraid?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
I was just at, in July, I was in a Korn concert, a metal concert, and I've always just been skeptical, because since in France they had the shooting at another metal concert, so
Right.
I'm kind of skeptical of like any crowd I really go to.
And the more aggressive the music, the more you think there might be, because the shooting at the, we can't really use that as an example anymore because the guy was in a hotel room across the way.
Yeah.
But in terms of close quarters shooting, mass shootings, that sort of thing, if it's, there haven't been, outside of that incident that you referred to, a lot of these mass shootings have nothing to do with, I mean, schools and churches and things like that.
Yes.
The crowd definitely isn't. It's an interesting proposition to say that. I wonder if the open gun where you can see it,
Yes.
lay in a holster or whatever it is, would be a deterrent. The same way that the front porch light at your house is a deterrent to people that want to break in through the front door. Do you think that an openly carried weapon would be a deterrent to someone who wanted to do a mass shooting?
Oh yeah, I definitely think that, because they could see, okay, I have a handgun in my jacket. How many people here would I have to deal with? And then they can look at the crowd, and if they have no guns, okay, fire on everyone. But if I see people with guns, oh gosh, I have 2 guys right here. If I shoot that guy, this guy over here is going to shoot me.
I guess okay, now, first of all, let's go back to most of the people that are doing the shooting are mentally unstable by societal standards. And so, have you ever heard the phrase death by policeman?
Yes.
Death by cop? Where you put yourself in a situation where you know that you're going to die because you're going to do something that's caused the cop to pull out the gun and shoot you dead. I've heard of death by train, somebody just jumps in front of a train, whatever. So I'm kind of thinking that most of the people that would do some sort of a public mass shooting, they don't think they're going to come out of it alive. And it's like their last hurrah. So then, do you think that seeing other people with guns is a deterrent? Or do you think that this person's made up their mind and it's, here we go?
If we're talking about that situation, probably the latter. The latter would definitely.
They're just, you know, here we go, and I don't care who has a gun because I want to die anyway. I'm going to take some people with me.
Because one of the big reasons that people would kill is because of their beliefs. So if someone believes in making a statement about something, then they'll take their own life for it. Like obviously, like the ISIS is doing that, and then the people who shoot up churches are doing that. So they will definitely be doing that. But if it's just someone who wants to kill, they'll say, okay, if I want to kill people, and if I die here, I won't be able to do it anymore.
Oh, I see that thinking. Yeah, so you're saying that if it's something that they enjoy about their life, causing death, then if they die themselves, they're not going to be able to enjoy their life anymore. And so that would be, I would bet the percentage of those people that are looking for self-preservation in a situation where they're causing death for other people, I don't think that self-preservation is their primary concern. I'm just guessing because I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm curious though to go back to the filtering process, because identifying the people that shouldn't have a gun because they could kill other people. I don't know. Like for instance, one of the first things that started a number of years ago, the idea of a mass shooting was what happened in Columbine, Colorado, and where a high school student went into a movie theater and opened fire.
Wait.
Oh, was that, no, the Columbine, I'm thinking of a different one.
Yes, the Columbine was
at a school.
Two shooters, yes.
At a school. Now, in retrospect, some people thought, nobody thought that they were capable of that. I mean, really. Do you identify anybody, don't name names, obviously, but can you ever come across another student or person your age where you thought, okay, this person really could pull out a gun and mess up people?
Not physically, but I've met people online like that.
Really? In a conversation? How do you've met them? What does that mean?
Well, like I'm on the internet a lot, so I'll like maybe like go to an internet chat room.
Sure.
And then I'll see this guy who's in the chat room and he's like, I'm literally insane. And I'm like, that's not something that you'd probably say to someone. So it's like they want people to know, apparently.
Well, I would question that, because most insane people don't realize they're insane. And the insane is such a subjective thing. But in terms of aberrant behavior, do you think people are self-analytical and that they would admit that online? Or do you think that the people online are just sensational seeking?
I'd say the latter again.
Yeah, and so then the idea is, I guess maybe the internet is, in that particular context, is kind of a waste of time. I would be curious though, if somebody makes that kind of a statement. Did you know it's a federal law that when you get on an airplane, you can't make any jokes about bombing the plane?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So maybe there would be, then now we're kind of easing into personal security and privacy. Because if you monitor any text that goes out on the internet that says something, a combination of words that says, I will kill you, or I'll kill, or whatever it is, I'm a murderer, whatever, then that person is targeted, right? That now we're tagged that person, and now an immediate search goes out, and it could be done like by a bot. It could be done, artificial intelligence, to see, is there anything else that would give us red flags about this person because this alert has come up? Would that be a viable system?
So are you saying this happens now, or are you saying that you want that to happen?
I'm not saying neither. I'm wondering if that kind of a system was put into place, would that invade people's privacy in the name of security, or do you think that it's something that we maybe could prevent violence? Because we target the people that might be inclined for that.
Well, that in a way I think is already happening. like if
from a terrorist standpoint.
yes, so like if how to make a bomb, you search that up. I've heard that people, I've heard, I'm not exactly sure, but I've heard that people have been arrested for that kind of thing, searching up how to make a bomb.
I don't know if you can be arrested just for curiosity,
That's
but I
what's
think that
happened.
it has to be like a block in a chain of things that could be a threat.
So you're saying that like one time someone does it, they mark it, and it's like 3 strikes you're out kind of thing.
I don't think it would be that, well, not that analogy. It wouldn't be 3 strikes and you're out, but I think that law enforcement could be put on high alert for a particular person. I think that stuff happens. I think that that's how they can identify people that are thinking of a terrorist act or perhaps involved with a terrorist organization. You know, and then it becomes a clear and present danger because of all of the things that are symptomatic of taking action in a harmful way. I think that already goes on, but what I'm curious about is, can we add to that criteria anybody that's thinking of doing civilian harm as opposed to a national harm or military harm, that sort of thing?